Hey up, right, you'll be pleased to know I've found my reading glasses in the freezer, because apparently everybody knows that that's where people keep the reading glasses, apart from me, apparently. What I want to talk about today are stock mirrors on motorcycles. Most modern classics have them fitted. They look nice. Personally, I don't like the look of stock mirrors. I think they sort of spoil the lands of the bike. But one big issue that I have, and one big issue that I know a lot of people have, because I've heard this on the Triumph videos and the Royal Enfield videos, is that they don't give you a very good field of view. The best I can get these altered to is about a third of the mirror is filled with my elbow, and even then the vision of the lane behind me isn't very good, and if I try to angle it in any more to get a better idea of what's going on directly behind me, I just end up with more of my elbow in the mirror. So they don't really work for me very well. Now, I think I've told this story before, but I'm going to go over it again. 1983, I bought my first brand new motorcycle, GS125 Suzuki. Now, I decided that I would like to have the Suzuki equipped full fairing fitted to it. Now, I told my parents it was because I was having to ride in all weathers and I needed the weather protection. The truth is, it wasn't a very practical fairing. I just bought it because I thought it looked cool. And we often make purchasing decisions like that which cause other problems that we don't foresee at the time. And the problem was, the dealership fitted the fairing to the bike before I took delivery. And when I actually turned up to collect the bike, the workshop manager handed me a carrier bag with some bits in it. And when I opened it, it was the stock mirrors off the bike. Now, what they discovered was it was a sort of a sporty type fairing. Once they'd fitted the fairings, the mirrors fouled on the screen, so you couldn't turn your handlebars very far. So for safety reasons, obviously, they'd had to take them off. Now, I quite liked the idea of having mirrors so I could see what was going on behind me, and I asked him what my options were. And he told me the only thing he could think of would be to fit some bar end mirrors. But this was the early 1980s, and bar end mirrors weren't really in fashion then. They'd gone out of fashion. Very few people still made them. But he remembered that they did have a set in stock, which actually they'd moved out of the shop into the storeroom downstairs, because they'd been there for years and they hadn't sold. And they were a bar end mirror made by a company called Stadium. Now, I sold that bike in 1985 with those mirrors still attached, and they were the best mirrors I'd ever had on a motorcycle up to that point. In 1999, so that's some 15 years later, I saw that bike packed up in a car park, a supermarket car park. The bike was a wreck. It was rusty. It had obviously been dropped a couple of times. The bottom half of the fairing was gone. It had been broken off. But those two mirrors were still fitted to the bike, and they still looked almost as good as the day I'd fitted them some 15, 17 years earlier, apart from a bit of scuffing on the outside of the mirror dish where the bike had obviously gone down. Now, when I started this channel up and I got the Triumph T120, those mirrors immediately popped into my head as being the perfect accompaniment to a modern classic motorcycle. And I did quite a lot of research. It would appear that Stadium first offered that mirror for sale in 1934. Back in those days, mirrors weren't included, generally speaking, with a motorcycle. They were an option that you had to buy after you'd got the bike. And bar end mirrors were the preferred option because they give a superior view to the side, They really are so much better than stock mirrors. And these particular ones folded in. Now that must make them the oldest motorcycle accessory that's pretty much still been in production, continuous production, since 1934. Various companies have made versions of it, various copies are available on the market, but more recently, Stadium themselves reintroduced it. Now the original version was made from some sort of base metal. The ones I had, they may have been aluminium, possibly brass, although I think more likely aluminium, that had been chrome plated. They're now solid stainless steel that's been polished, and that's what I'm going to fit to the BSA Gold Star today, so we can get rid of these Mickey Mouse ears. Now, I got these mirrors from Hitchcock's Motorcycles, and it's obvious that Stadium really has bought into the unique classic status of these mirrors, because they've even reproduced the original box that they were available in, certainly back in the 1960s and the 1970s. These are a period correct item for any modern classic motorcycle, because these were widely available right up until the 1980s, and even after the 1980s it was the classic motorcycle scene that kept these alive, because obviously they needed a period correct mirror for their 1950s or 1960s motorcycle, and the Stadium bar end mirror was the mirror of choice. Now, there are two versions available. There's a sort of a trapezoid version, which is actually the version that I had fitted to my GS125 in the past. The round versions came later, I think probably in the 1950s, although more likely in the 1960s from the research that I've done in the past. I mean, you know, nobody's written a book on these mirrors. It's just what I've managed to glean from snippets of information that I found on the internet. And the round version are the versions that I'm going to fit today. Now, I thought these came packaged separately. I got these from Hitchcock's. I'll leave a link in the video description down below. The big problem nowadays is, in the old days, handlebars were hollow. So they had like an expanding mandrel that these fastened onto, that you pushed into the end of the handlebar, and then as you tightened it, it expanded the mandrel which held it in place. Obviously nowadays motorcycle manufacturers use sort of bar end plugs which are threaded, which complicates things a little bit, because you need a kit specific to each make and model of motorcycle. And you know, even with the Triumph, from what I remember, that can vary from one model to another. This is the important part here. This is the adapter that allows you to screw it straight into the plug on the end, in the ends of the handlebars. So I'm going to get on with fitting this. It's a really simple, easy job to do. Let's get on. Now, it almost seems like a shame to do this. These have got some really nice polished, I think the stainless steel, heavy duty bar end weights on the end. They're a 5mm Allen key or Allen screw, so don't use your Aldi kit, use a Draper or something similar. They come off fairly easy. Just be careful not to drop it. One thing I've noticed going around this bike is that they don't seem to have used Loctite on any of the parts that I've disturbed so far. Even on these bar ends, because I have previously taken them off just to have a look how they're constructed. So yeah, that's basically it. You've now taken your bar end off. I'll just put this somewhere where it won't get dropped. Now, I've fitted these to all of my motorcycles over the years. The Triumphs have all got them. All of my Royal Enfields have them. To me, you know, it's a no-brainer. They're just the perfect mirror for the job. Now, if you can see with this adapter, it exactly mirrors exactly mirrors the design of the bar end weight. So it's a perfect fit for the bike. There's no sort of adjustment or jiggling around required. It just goes straight into the socket, and it leaves you enough clearance straight away for the operation. Yeah, it's not going to stay there. Just a minute. Even when it's fully tightened in, it leaves enough clearance for your throttle, which is important. So there's nothing to fit these really. I don't want to make a meal out of it. You have a cutout in the end piece of the actual mirror there, which is designed to engage with a corresponding part on the actual adapter itself. Now this is important because this is what allows you to set the angle of the actual mirror when you fit it. So it's simply placed in there like that. Comes supplied with a stainless steel Allen screw or Allen bolt, whatever you want to call it. And you simply screw it in. And set it in place. Now, as you can see with these, you can fold them all the way in, so you know, if you've got any problems parking, if you're parking in a tight space or you're trying to get it through a gate or something like that, you can move them out of the way, and then for use on the road you just pull them out like that. Really simple idea. What I like to do, I always found, need to be angled down very slightly. I'll get some better pictures later on, and then tighten it up good and proper to make sure that it doesn't move around. Now we'll set the actual mirror up. That's basically all there is to fitting it. We'll set the actual mirror up once I've got everything sorted out. That just needs tightening up, and of course it's a different size Allen screw. So what I'll do is I'll move over to the other side, we'll do that one, and then we'll take it from there. So it's exactly the same operation on the other side. Remove your bar end weight, and then get your stadium mirror ready to go. I mean, these are a classic piece of engineering. You know, as far as I'm concerned, if you've got a modern classic, there's no other mirror you should be fitting to it. As I said earlier, these are period correct mirrors. There's I can't think of any other product really that has stayed, you know, the same as the original and is readily available. Just and fitting them is really simple. I wouldn't have any other mirror on any of my bikes. You know, that's quite simply the best there is. And the actual field of view that you get behind you, you can dial your elbows out of the equation completely when you adjust your mirror. So I'm just tipping that at a very slight angle forward. I might have to adjust it again later. I usually have a bit of a fiddle about with these once they're fitted. And that's all there is to it. Just take this sticky bit of plastic off. That's just there to protect them during the manufacturing process and whilst they're now you've got a tightening assembly here which is supposed to set them rock solid so they cannot be moved. I actually like to leave that very slightly loose just in case I ever do feel that I need to adjust them. When you're riding the bike solo, you know, the bike sort of sits at one angle, but when you've got luggage and a pillion on board, the bike tends to sit down a little bit at the back, which can disturb your angle of view. So I like to leave them just loose enough that I can just move them if necessary, just to sort of realign it. And again, I'm trying to do that and I haven't got the right size key for it. These do feel a little bit loose, they need tightening up, but that's often how they come. But as I say, you know, you can just fold them right out of the way when they're not in use. You can have them angled all the way down if you prefer that, although just make sure that it doesn't come in contact with the tank on full lock. Yeah, they're the perfect, proper, classic product for any motorcycle. Now obviously the big problem that we have at the moment is that the bike now looks like a 1960s Lambretta. We've got too many mirrors going on here. So I'm going to take these off. If I remember correctly, we have a 17mm on the top, which is the lock nut. And we might actually be able to, yeah, there we go. The lock nut is just for setting it in place to make sure that it doesn't move around. It's usually when you buy a new bike you find these are flopping all over the place because no one's bothered to do that. So just carefully unscrew that. Looking better already. Now that's a conventional thread on that side. On the other side, the thread will go the opposite way. Or it should do. Yeah, it goes the opposite way. So that, you know, the wind doesn't gradually unfasten your, or loosen your mirror off while you're riding. Well, that's that one off. And what we're left with now is two unsightly holes in the top. And Hitchcocks also have an antidote for that. Just give me a moment because I've left them in the house. Right, I'm back. Now these are available in black or brass. And it just blocks up that hole and tidies everything up. As I say, I like the brass. I know some people probably will. That's fine. They do a black version for those that prefer black, which actually, you know, it's more in keeping with the bike. But I just like the sort of detailed touch that a brass part gives, and these will mellow with age. They look a bit bright and shiny now. They're actually a satin finish. But in time they'll dull off and they'll start to tarnish, which, you know, you'll get that nice mellow brass look, a bit like on my keyring here. So yeah, nice way of just tidying that up, and we've now got a bike that looks like it's come straight out of the 1960s. Now yeah, this knuckle here is a 6mm, and what I like to do is just tighten them up a little bit. I think they just sort of loosely assemble them at the factory, so they're not, they do need sort of just trimming up. This is on like a spring-loaded ratchet, so don't fasten it too tight. What you don't want is it flopping around too much while you're actually riding the bike. So just tighten it up bit by bit. And you want to make it so that it does require a bit of pressure to fold them in. I still need a little bit more. The good thing about these as well is they don't seem to be affected too much by vibration. I know I've got them fitted on my classic 350 and the view through them at any speed is crystal clear. Right, that's about right. It just requires a bit of force to, I mean, don't worry about that wobble. They do that. But it's not a problem when you're riding the bike, funnily enough. You would think it would be, but it isn't. So, same with this side. Just put a bit of pressure on that spring inside it, so it'll operate correctly, but it's not flopping around. Just a little bit loose for my liking. Takes quite a few times. As I say, I think they're just loosely assembled, enough sort of hold together at the factory, and you're expected to adjust them to your liking. I was feeling quite... no, I've got a bit too far there. Yeah, if you go too far with it, you'll find it doesn't want to move. So it's just reaching that point where, that's it. So as I say, you can get it right in, out of the way if you need to, while the bike's parked up, or it's in storage somewhere, and then you just fold them out. And the beauty is, it sets the mirror back to exactly the same position every time. Once this is set, you don't really need to worry about it. Like I said, these mirrors, they're really well made. I think they're actually astounding value for money. Stainless steel, they're never going to rust. In fact, I've got to admit, I do tend to neglect mine a bit when I'm cleaning them, because you know they are just so durable in use. I mean, I've had some of these on my bikes for 8 years plus. They still look as good as the day I fitted them way back when. This film's proving a bit tenacious. Once they're on and you've got them properly adjusted, they're pretty much maintenance free. It's an absolute no-brainer. I don't know why anybody would want to fit any other type of mirror. They're just absolutely perfect. I mean, they've got that real... Right, I'll have a go at getting that off later on. It's obviously stuck fast. They've got that... Being a design from the sort of early 1930s, they've got that real Art Deco look about them, which I really like, and it fits with a bike from any era, certainly up to sort of the 1970s and perhaps through the 1970s or 1980s. Everything started to become very plasticky and modern and angular. Perhaps they don't fit in with bikes from the 1980s onwards, but any bike that is, you know, a modern classic that's styled on something from the 50s and the 60s, it's the perfect accompaniment to your bike. And as I said, they don't just look good, they are immensely practical. They are perfect mirrors. It's one of the first things I do with any new bike, any modern classic bike, is fit a set of these, because you just can't beat them. So yeah, so we've got rid of the horrible Mickey Mouse ears. They're going to take a little bit of adjustment, I think, just to get them where I want them. You know, the advantage of leaving it a little bit loose is that, you know, once you get out on the road, you can sort of adjust them as you're going along until you get the perfect angle. If you want to try and tighten them up with these nuts on the front, after that you can do it. I've never found it necessary, to be honest, to lock them in place. because they are stiff enough that they won't move. But yeah, fantastic mirrors. I'll leave a link in the video description down below. Now, let me know what you think about this format of video. I always feel like it drones on a little bit too long, and I do get one or two complaints from people. Unfortunately, we live in that age now where everybody's got a short attention span on these video platforms, and they want a quick 30-second fix for whatever it is they're looking for, so they can move on to a fluffy kitten video or whatever it is they want to watch. The way I see it doing it this way is that if somebody's using this video as reference to actually doing some sort of fitting, there's nothing worse, and I've found this when I've used videos in the past to, you know, work out how to do something in the house or whatever. When they blast through it really quickly, you constantly find you're having to go back and rewind it and look at a bit again, and it's hard to take in all the information that you've been given. And I've always just thought, you know, doing it this way, fitting everything in real time, gives the viewer, especially if they're using this as a reference for fitting whatever the subject of the video is, it gives them the time to sort of work along with you, and they're not constantly having to down tools and go back and, you know, rewind the phone because they've missed a bit or whatever. It gives people time to sort of work along with you rather than be fighting against time all the time. Let me know what you think. I can always tweak things a little bit. One thing I have noticed, it makes editing so much easier than doing it the old way when I used to narrate over the top. It made filming very easy, but it made the editing side really difficult, and I'm sort of quite enjoying the freedom that doing it this way is giving me. Right, once again, thank you so much for taking the time to watch this and my other videos, and in doing so, helping to support this channel. I really do appreciate it. I would also appreciate it if you would leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you're not already a subscriber. That sort of kickstarts the algorithm and it helps the channel out. Now, you can help me out in other ways via the super thanks button down below there, or via my Patreon page if you want to. Not obligatory, obviously. The bags haven't arrived for the bike yet. I'm expecting them tomorrow now, so we're probably looking at that video coming on next week. So I will be back next week, obviously. Until then, ride safely, and I'll see you soon.